All right, let's have a go at some basic compositing. Compositing simply means taking several images and using them to create a new single composite image made of various images. So for this, we're going to utilize layer masks. We're going to utilize adjustment layers. We're going to set up the final image. We're not necessarily going to finish it. There's a lot of little details that go into a composite, but at least we'll get things started and we'll go through some basic procedures that you would need to utilize for any composite. So let's take a look at our options here. I have curated a set of images. They're all stock images, royalty-free stock images. So they're in the project folder. Here's one, street, looks like Europe, old, old history. Here's a daytime open sky, plains, grassy land with wooden walkway. Then I got a interior here somewhere here too. Okay, here's one, interior artificial light, very geometric. So there's three different scenes, mainly so that we can, explore different challenges. Let's take a look at these three and figure out what the challenges would be. Mainly, the first one is the size of our elements that we're going to composite in are going to be defined by the parameters of the background. So here we can actually see these people are references for how big our people would be if we were to place people in. And obviously because there's a perspective here and there's a vanishing point that somebody, if we were to place people in the foreground here, they'd be larger. But we have very strong references in this image. The location, the possible locations that we have for this image are limited because of the composition here. And there's a very particular lighting setup here. It's it's very diffuse. It's low contrast. We should keep that in mind. Lighting will be an issue for all composite work. Here, exterior day shot, nothing's around, so we can place people anywhere. There's a wooden path here, so there's kind of an obvious location to place people. There's some tracks here. If we had a car, we might think about that. But really, there's a lot of options here where we can place our objects that are going into this composite. The lighting is bright. It is direct. And there are, we can't see any shadows really because there's nothing high enough to cast a shadow, but it looks, like a daytime overhead, strong overhead type of light. Probably coming from top right. Okay, and then this one, an enclosed space, again, limited opportunities for placement. We do see some reference people in the background, but our main opportunity is probably placing, a person here. We don't have enough room to place a car, for instance. So if we want to place a car, it's be fairly challenging to do that in a convincing way here. And then the lighting, looks like there's some kind of like daylight open lighting out in this area here. Maybe that's a courtyard with a skylight or something like that. But here in this area, it's all cast with this neon or faux neon type of light. And there's some type of merchandising lighting somewhere around. There's mixed lighting and it's of a particular cast. This kind of magenta pink cast. So anything that we bring in to these scenes need to take into account the space and the lighting. And layer masks and adjustment masks are going to be really helpful for that endeavor. Let's take a look at the subjects. that that I have picked out. We've got a puppy dog. Cute and small, so easy to place into anything. So I've got this guy here as a softball for us. I've got a pandemic pedestrian. Somebody got a mask out there walking, crouched, so easy to select, and evenly lit. So that's nice for us. And let's see, there's one more here. Okay, another one. Person indoor or artificial lighting type of scenario, full body. All of these three subjects that I've picked. One of the reasons I picked them was the lighting is even across them, even though the lighting is different. This looks like, artificial or studio type lighting coming from middle left into frame. This one here looks like just your standard daylight, natural and neutral, high in the sky between 10 and 2 type of thing. But you see how it's a lot cooler. This one here is a lot warmer. There's a lot more tone. And then the dog, where's the dog? The dog looks like it's bright diffuse light, but it's even. All of these subjects get even lighting, and that's useful for us because it means our approach to relighting them to match their environment is going to be more simplified. Again, we're not going to get into all the steps on lighting detail, but we will do setups to get us in the neighborhood. We want to get on the paper, so to speak, so that when we do our second or third pass on the composite, that we can get right down to all the details fairly quickly. So let's start. Because this is open daylight and this is open daylight, I think maybe I'll start with these two. Yeah, let's do that. The quality of light's a little bit different. This is a little bit warmer. This is a little bit cooler. That may have to do with the reflective opportunities. We're reflecting off grass and natural things here, vegetation. So there's a little bit more of kind of a tone of life here, and there's a lot of concrete in this one. So maybe that's why it's cooler. Could have just been also toned in the photography, but we're going to start off by just taking this image in full. Going to take this whole layer and bring it into this one here. So the first step that you will have is to bring in your elements into your background, or bring in the actors to the stage would be another way to talk about it. Probably bring in this dog too. Why don't we just bring it all in at the same time? So we have a dog, we have a hiker, and we have a background. And this is how it looks. The composite starts off and it looks like this. So the first thing we probably want to do is size them up. But maybe as a preparation for that, I'll work on a mask so that we can isolate these subjects from their environments, because the environments are not needed. So here I am. I'll label these. Dog, walker, and meadow. It's not really meadow, it's fields. Okay. All right. So first of all, we're going to get some layer masks on the dog and the walker. One thing you can do is, since we know what we're headed for, we just want a straight mask that knocks out the background here. I can start before I set the layer. I can go in and get a selection tool. I'm going to just use the quick selection tool because, like the name says, it's quick. And let's just grab the dog. You see, I'm not being very precise. I don't need to be. I just want to get, a pretty good selection that covers most of this subject, so I can get it into the mask, and then I'll refine it once I'm in the mask. So here I am. I've got most of my subject selected. I'm catching some of this shadow bit here. I'm not going to worry about it too much, but I'm just going to click, while this is selected, I'm going to click on this layer mask icon, and it's now going to immediately apply my selection into the mask. So most of my work here is done with a mask. I can now go in, make sure I'm in the layer mask by clicking on the thumbnail of the layer mask, and I can clean it up. So I can go here and hide some of this stuff, which should not be part of the image. So again, I am not going to go and sit here and spend an hour and be perfect about everything, but I just do want to point out that these would be the steps, and you don't want to just try to be perfect every step of the way. You want to move through with deliberation and speed, so that you can get to versions that are closer and closer to the final before you commit to doing the extra detail work, because maybe you'll notice something along the way that needs your attention, and it will totally change the way the concept that you have for the work. So anyway, I'll just do that. There's some little things here and there that that probably need to be done on old doggo, but so far so good. Let's pull back, hide the walker for a second, and take a look. I can move this dog around with the move tool, and not only does the dog move, but the mask moves with it. That is because these two thumbnails here are connected by virtue of the fact of this icon that looks like a little link. It's indicating that the layer mask content and the layer content are connected. So if I move something here, I'm right now on you see I'm on the mask, and I'm moving the mask. The content is moving with it. If I click on this content and I move this dog, the mask is moving with it. And you can see this in action if I have the content layer selected, but if I click this link and boom, it goes away. Now if I move this, look what happens. So this is an example of what it looks like when the two elements are not linked, and maybe you want to use that sometime for some reason, but for our purposes we want them linked, so I'll leave that there. Let's hide the dog, go to the walker, and also use the same method of our selection to our subject. Quickly knock it out. Look, it's grabbing the shadow, so that tells me I'm gonna have to work on the shadows, because the dog didn't have a shadow from what I recall, and this one does. So just go in there, pull all that, just grab all these bits, get the shoulder. All right, so here we are, we got the walker. Let's set up our layer mask with the selection. It gives us the selection automatically creates our first version of the mask. So you see here this shadow is pulling in the floor of the ground sidewalk of the source image. That's okay for now. Let's go in and do a little bit of cleanup. I see right down here. Oops. So in the brush mode in layer mask, you're either going to be hiding or revealing. So you're going to generally be flipping between the background and foreground colors. You can use the X key on your keyboard to quickly swap those back and forth. See, like this tells me I over revealed, so I can go back in and clean that up. Again, I'm not going to go and be totally perfect here. I'm just going to be good enough so that I can show all these steps, knowing that, if you see this, you know that you can go in and, you could do what it takes to make it perfect. but I just want to pull out the edge of this jacket that this person's wearing. So I'm just kind of following the edges of the subject to make sure any holes haven't been captured. So here's a little bit where there's some hair. I'd need to go do this. I need to get this is the time-consuming stuff. The details matter, but in terms of like demo videos, it's kind of takes the thunder away. So I'll just do some of this, knowing that hey, somebody's gonna have to go back and do all of this. Okay. Oops. Also, if you have a pen as opposed to a mouse, this is a great time to be using your pen. I'm on a computer right now where my pen is not set up for this computer, so I'm using a mouse, and I'll tell you, once you go use a pen for brushwork, it's hard to see the sense in using the mouse after that. But I'm going to do it right now because don't have a choice. Not sure what that is, but just let's do that. And here we have the shadow. I'm just going to leave it for now. Maybe we'll have to rebuild the shadow completely based on whatever happens with the dog. But we could certainly work with this. Okay. So we have now two elements brought into our scene. They've been masked out. Now we're going to place them. I'm just going to place them on this. They're going to be buddies like this. But I want to, make this convincing. So, or maybe I don't. Let's start by being convincing. We're going to take the walker and attempt to set the walker in a manner that makes her appear, I'm saying her because of the style of these boat shoes, and these eyes, earring, could be wrong, but we'll just call her her. I want it to be proportional to the boards here. There's some kind of detail on the board. There's some kind of like fasteners that give me a sense of scale, and the grass and the tracks. So I'll go to transform, scale. I will hold down the option key when I do the scale so that it's proportional. And I'm just going to eyeball this. I think that's about the size. I'm just guessing right now. The angle here on the perspective is fairly drastic. Looks like it's a wide angle lens. Like these boards are very wide and they thin out very quickly. So, but I'm gonna just say this is about right. And if I'm wrong, I can change it later. So here we are. Let's get the dog. The dog is going to be a buddy. It's going to be right in front of her. So we need to size the dog proportionally. We're also going to do that with the transform scale. tool. It's a puppy, so it's probably pretty small. Zoom in. Well, that maybe is about right. See, puppy's head about the size of your hand. Yeah, okay. I mean, I buy it. Do you guys buy it? I see that, one thing you can do is, unless you've got some strict orders for how you depict these elements, I'm going to just take this dog and flip him. Mainly because the way he's tilted, he's kind of like tilting to one side. I think just compositionally it feels a little more balanced to me if I do this. By the way, I'm nudging him around with my arrow keys on the keyboard. So if I can go left, right, up, down by 1 pixel increments. And if I don't want that precision, I can hold down the shift key and then use the arrow keys, and then it goes in 10, 5, I forget. Anyway, let's say this little dog is hiding right here in the protective knee space of her owner. And this looks like a very inviting kind of pose. So here we've got placement. This would be, our location placement work. We've used layer masks and transform to really make it work. I like this orientation of these two, so I'm gonna take both of them and place them in a group folder. So this is my work. That way I can toggle this off and on and just see the difference. Now I want to address the the lighting, because the lighting is different. You can see that the lighting on the hiker is a little bit cooler. It has a certain kind of brightness, which is not exactly the same as the background. I think basically we need a little more tone in both the hiker and the dog to make it feel like it, that it's sharing light here. So what I'm going to do mainly is I think that that there's a greenish tone to this image overall. I can even see like the little bits of the green in the wood, and that could be because of the natural effect of light being reflective, and there's a lot of green, and so it's amplifying the green, or it could be because that's the way the image was toned. So I'm going to just simply sample some of this green, and I'm going to cast some of that green onto my introduced elements into this. I'm going to do that with an adjustment layer. We'll use the solid color adjustment layer. Here it is. It's picked up my foreground color, so I'm glad I set that. And I'm going to do the following. I'm going to take this color adjustment layer and pull it out of this group where it was placed and put it above the group. And then I'm going to set up a clipping mask on this adjustment layer so that it attaches to this group folder. And I'm going to do that by holding down the Option key, and this little icon comes up. And I'm going to just touch the line between color fill 1 and group 1, click that. And so now this color fill adjustment layer of this green is now only affecting the dog and the walker, the elements of this group. Okay. It's not affecting the background. So this is our color cast. It's obviously too strong right now, but if I change the lighting, let's give it a soft light. Look at the effect of that. We've gone from our subject having their own color and now we bring it in and it's a little bit better. It's maybe too much, so I can turn down the opacity, and I can also turn down the fill. And now I get something that blends a little bit better. I feel like that this blend, not even being scientific here, I just kind of winged it, is better than this. Feels better to me than this. Yeah. And now that I'm looking at this, I feel like they're kind of big. So I could grab this whole group, shift to my move tool, and maybe move them forward in perspective where they would be bigger. And we'll see how things go. Okay. All right. What else do I need to do here? I mean, this is a good start, and this video is about getting the start going. I think that probably also, you see how punchy the colors are on our dog here? I feel like that's not quite the lighting that that is being presented in the scene, so let's do something about that. Here's the dog. Let's get a folder going because we're going to do some work, an adjustment layer just for the dog. I think maybe the first thing I'll do is let's see what it looks like if we desaturate a little bit. I'm going to clip the desaturation adjustment mask to the dog, and let's see what happens when I take a little bit of this, take the edge off. I feel like that's the direction we need to go. You see how right now, as is, there's a little, there's something going on with the lighting here that's just creating a little bit more vibrancy compared to our person, compared to our scene. So I've just taken a little bit of that out, and actually the tones now, they better match the hiker. So I like that. I'd like to see a little bit more brightness in the dog's face. It's kind of getting muddled out with all this resizing and whatnot. So let's try brightness. Let's clip it. And now here's what I'm going to do. With brightness, I actually just want to get the face. So I'm gonna look at the face right now and key in the brightness. I don't want it on this whole body. That's what I got. But what I can do now is I can go into the layer mask of this adjustment layer. I'll pick a paint bucket and I'll drop black into the whole thing. So now it all went away. Now I'm going to reverse my brush to white, and I'm just going to bring it back. I'll set my brush to be really, really quite subtle. And I'm just going to start to bring it back. Hello. Flows very low. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more. Okay, so here you see the work has given me a way to, this is the brightening amount. Zoom in. Okay. Just a little bit to bring some detail into the face. Okay. So I think we're pretty close. This is actually a very good setup, and we've not spent too much time on it. Let me do one more thing. I need to introduce a shadow for the dog because the walker, has a shadow. I can see here there's a bunch of work I need to do because look, the concrete is definitely coming through. I think what I need to do is actually rebuild both the hiker's shadow and the dog's shadow. I'm not going to do that in this video because I want to focus on the layer mask and adjustment layer techniques and the shadow stuff. It gets into composite constructive procedures and techniques, and we actually cover that elsewhere later in the class, so we'll save it for that. But to set it up, we can just do a setup of our dog shadow. Here's the dog. I'm going to go to this layer and I'm going to copy it. Let's see, dog shadow, call it dog shadow. Here's my dog shadow. I will place it under the dog. Look, I lost my, when I copied this layer, I lost my clipping masks on these guys, so I'm going to put them back. Watch for that. Here's my dog shadow. I'm going to drop a color on it. I'm going to clip this to the shadow so it's just applied to the dog shadow layer, and this is the dog shadow layer. I'm going to change this color for now, get my eyedropper tool and sample the darkest part of this hiker shadow, and we will set it to that. Okay. Now, with this dog shadow, we will transform it. Let's skew it. I think I probably want to do perspective. Just going to match the angle here. Okay, so when I turn the dog back on, I'm going to have a shadow that, oops. I'm going to have a shadow that is pretty close to what I need, and I can modify it further. Just going to match the angles here. I can also go ahead and apply blend mode to get into the neighborhood of this one. So this is my setup of the shadow. It's not the final. Obviously I've got to, I need to blur it out. I match the colors, probably build this one, get the origins of the shadow to start where the dog is. But this tells me what I need to do, and it brings me into, gets that last element in, because I do need this shadow of this dog. So this would be the setup. We've done placing, we've done lighting, and we've made sure all the additional elements based on our placing are happening. So I feel like this one is is would satisfy this amount of steps would satisfy the this week's assignment. Let's do another one. Do this one. Let's do this one because it's so different. There's a whole lighting thing happening here. We can bring in, why don't we bring this person in this glamorous pose, put him in the store, fashion store. So we're going to grab this one and go into the store. So again, step one, bring the element in, and then let's size it. Okay, so you can see here the size of this image is larger than the canvas. So I'm just going to go up here and in the sizing options panel, I'm just going to go to this height and set it to half, 50%. Oh, okay, that's pretty good. Just wanted to get the boundaries of this into the ballpark so I can do something with it. Now I can manually size it. I'm going to place her also, sort of forward in frame. Again, if you just want to freestyle it, you're going to look for references in the same visible plane of where you're placing your element. So in this case, it's very easy to see. You see these people way back here. They're way downfield in the perspective. But the nature of this image, we've got the perspective line, depth lines just marked out for us. So let's say we're going to place her right here in this little section. We have this bench to give us a sense of, hey, what would it be like if somebody was sitting here? How big would they be? We have this bench as reference, and we have these clothes as reference. So these are they're hoodies. Here's some baseball caps. So this is like a sporting, casual goods kind of place. There's a little Nike logo. So this is the approximate size of a person would be in this oversized hoodie. So we got a sense of how big she should be. She's I don't know, pretty close. Yeah, maybe we're just doing pretty good today. I'm just going to place her right on this line here, her toes on this line. And so now let's build a mask. So I'm going to just identify her. Again, I don't have to be too picky or precise because I'm just building a initial selection, and I can, in the mask, I can clean it up. Looks like there's some hair here that I can pick up or not. So this is good. I see stuff that I will definitely have to clean up. So now I'm going to click on the layer mask icon, and we now have a mask. She's in place, and actually proportionally it looks not bad. So yay for that. Okay, so let's go here and let's figure out what we need to do for our mask work. I'm going to make sure I'm in the mask, get my brush going, and set my brush hardness up, my opacity up, my flow up. Okay. Again, this work, very detail-oriented work. Great if you have a brush. Great if you have music. And, if you're a perfectionist, you love this part. What is this? Okay, it's a little bit of crud. this kind of stuff here, you can go into the content section and let's use the magic wand. Select the whole area of the content and then go to the mask and then quickly brush it. Yeah, see this one here? I can set my tolerance to be something very strict. These little bits of the artifacts of contrast here is definitely part of the detail work. This here, I can just probably select all this. Yeah. And then whoosh. Okay, so you kind of see where we're going. I think there's probably more down here. There's stuff. There's like some hair issue over here. There's this. Let's just get the obvious things. Oh yeah, there's a lot here. Flip that. Whole parts of these pants just vanished. Okay. You know, I see more, and as Photoshop artists, you're always going to see more. The trick is to not get caught up in every little detail and pay attention to your objectives and your goal. Our goal right now is to get the composite, the main elements set up in a way where it's convincing enough to say we can go on and let's make it perfect. Don't try to make it perfect from the get-go. You have, if you're already started on something, you have multiple chances to, you know, work all the issues out. So let every pass be involve work that helps you justify spending more time on it. So I'm just going to clean up a little bit there. So far, so good. We've got the subject in place, centered. It looks good. It looks, it looks, I mean, maybe this is like physically an issue. So I'm going to just nudge this down a little bit. Or, I don't know, we'll just leave it for now. Okay, got the mask. Let's do some lighting work. So obviously in the original, there's some full lighting on her. You can see head to toe, the lighting is pretty even and it's very bright. And that's not the case with the store. We have to actually turn down the lighting here. But there's all these kind of highlights from the neon. So we want to address that as well. Let's bring in an adjustment layer to deal with the lighting. Let's say levels. Generally, it's darker in this merchandising chamber. So I want my levels to be adjusted to reflect that. Basically, what I think we need to do here is we need to shift everything, to the right. In other words, anything that's fully black and anything that's close to black, it should drop off to black sooner, right? Like you see these black pieces of clothing here. There's no detail in there. That's just the nature of this lighting. It's not bad lighting. It's just the way this room is lit. So we want her lighting to more closely match the space, and that means the blacks and the shadows need to fall to pure black faster, sooner. The gray, the midtones need to fall to shadow sooner, and to do that we're going to take this slider and shift it this way. And we're going to take this one and also shift it this way. And actually look at that. That's actually not bad. I'm going to take this adjustment layer and clip it to our person so it's just affecting her. And that's pretty good. Yeah, I'm going to also let's take some saturation out, see what that looks like. Here's saturation. Just want to take a little bit of it out. Yeah. Okay. Here's what we look like right now. Let's zoom into the image. Here's the saturation adjustment. Here's the original. You see how it's a little bit more punchy in the original. So with this adjustment layer, I'm stripping it out. I'm stripping it out because in this hallway, in this chamber, there's an absence of light. So there wouldn't be enough light to create that type of saturation. If anything, the amount of light in this hallway is going to create more magenta highlights. So we'll deal with that next, but I just wanted to give a reasoning for why I'm stripping out some of the saturation. So you see, especially in her, the skin tones of her face, they're very like sunset glow right now. And it just doesn't feel real to me. So I'm going to just take some of that out. Here's what it looks like. This looks better. She still looks kind of glamorously lit, but it's better. It's within the realm of, okay, maybe I can accept this. And as far as our levels, here are the original levels, very well lit, very evenly lit, almost light flooding onto the subject. That's not the space. So we've taken that away. We've throttled that back. And I think that's better. We could probably even do a little bit more and again, get away with it. But if this was a fashion shoot, then maybe there's some lighting in here, etc. So one thing I want to do is now get some of this magenta lighting coming down onto her. I see the way it works is that there's some lighting, there's some bars up here, and they're casting light down, and anything that's got a surface is reflecting it. So I see it here. I see it, falling on the highlight lines of the light clothing. So I want to do the same thing. I'm going to just get I'm going to get some of this color and just paint, literally just freestyle paint. So I'm going to get a new layer. I'll call this my highlight, pink highlight. I'm going to sample, get my eyedropper, and I don't want this light because this is the source light, which the camera is not seeing very well. I want what this light hits and is reflecting. So maybe like this right here. I want that because that's going to be the tone that, would be more evident on her because she's going to reflect that light. She's not going to emanate it. She's going to reflect it. So I'm going to pick that. That's my foreground color. Get my brush. And I guess I'll just start with 100. And remember, everything we do is iterative. We're not worried about being perfect on the first try because we're going to take it. Photoshop lets us take our work through processes of rendering and applying. So I'm gonna just paint. I'm gonna find all the edges where maybe there would be some highlighting, and I'm not gonna worry about myself being too perfect about things. Maybe here, maybe here like that. Just follow the pant line a little bit. So really I'm just looking at light and shape and just following that a little bit. Okay, let's start with that. Okay, so now what I want to do is get a blend mode going here. Gonna turn it down. And look what's interesting here is now that I've turned this down, the highlighting here is really matching well with the reflection off the floor. So I know I'm actually in a pretty good space. Okay, so let's take a look here. We're zoomed in. We see my highlight work as very rough brush strokes, and they're very messy. So what I'm going to propose is that we reuse this layer mask that we've created for the model and apply that onto this pink highlight area. So here's how we would do that. I'll duplicate this, call it a work layer. Then I'll go to this pink highlight layer and create a layer mask. Then I'm going to go to my work layer. I'm going to click on this mask and drag it over. And it's going to place that in for me onto my highlights. It takes it off this, but this is my work layer, so I can get rid of it. And now you'll see that I've now placed a layer mask over my highlights, and now they look more workable. At this point, I'm going to get my smudge tool, and now I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to smudge out my highlight work. Essentially, I'm going to follow the content lines of the subject and what's going on with the light to blend these highlights into the form that they are meant to be highlighting. So it's going to look something like this. Let's turn it down a little bit. Let's turn it way down. Yeah. So it's like I'm spreading this around. In the hair especially, I'm just gonna push it around the hair And with the clothing, I want to follow the fabric line. Let's do this. Switch to blur. That. That's the kind of toning that the effect that we want. There's a presence, and you're not going to be able to notice it. You're not going to be able to see it, but you'll. But it's definitely. And for the most part, I'm just looking for contours and shapes where light would fall and naturally collect this type of highlight behavior. Let's see what we got here. There's something here at the foot. Oh, look at her toe. Okay, up here. Okay, see the toning difference? See the little highlights that, these little bits of highlight? They help us merge the lighting of the subject with this scene. Okay. I think it actually works very nicely here on the pants because it, you know, there are these different magenta accents throughout this building, and we get a sense that it's happening here. So that would be the little bit of lighting work we would do for continuity. And this is probably a pretty good place. Well, let's see. One thing we'll always have to do is some shadow work, just like on the other one with the dog. I'll just place basic shadow stuff here. So what I'll do is I will get my eyedropper, sample some dark spot from the scene, and that's going to be my source for, let's build my shadows down here. Here's going to be something for this heel. Let's call this heel shadow. Ooh. And let's call this shoe shadow, shoe toe shadow. Okay. And then this one will be right here. Just putting a little splotch in. Because with this, now we can get a blend mode going. Down the back. Let's try a soft light. Then we will definitely smash it a little bit. Whoops. The wrong one. We could even start throwing a blur on it. Just to give it a hint of shadow. Here's my we would do these separately because they're going to be manipulated separately, differently. And I need to clean up the mask on this. Okay, so just this little hint helps, will help this person look like they're placed right here. It looks like I need to turn it down even more. But without these little accents, the person might feel like they're floating. With it, you pay less attention. Your eye sees that something is there. It gives you a cue that it's all in one place. And I noticed that the focus is a little bit different. Like she's very sharp and these are not as sharp. So we could do something about that. Maybe what I'll do at this point is turn this into a smart object. So that when I run a filter on this layer, if I want to change it later, I can. Okay, so here's the original. Soften it up a little bit. Original. Yeah, just takes the edge just a little bit off. Okay. I need to reclip this and this. Throw this away. Oops. Sorry. I duplicated it and I should have thrown it away. Okay. Let's turn this back up. Okay, so this would be our setup for this interior with artificial lighting. And we could actually keep on adjusting things as our vision gets clarified. Layer masks and adjustment layers, very powerful for compositing.